your mind.
Good evening and welcome to Open Your Mind Radio. You have myself, Alan James.
And myself, Stephen George. Good evening.
Good evening. It's Sunday the 18th of February 2018 and we're nearly starting the show late there, but as usual, myself and Steve...
We nearly done it again.
We nearly done it again. We get talking about technology and stuff and all that, and all of a sudden we look at the time and go, oops, God, it's 7 o'clock. We better go live. Good evening, everybody. How are you doing? Right, okay, we have a packed show tonight. We have two guests on the show tonight. Our first guest is a chap called Greg Caton, and our second guest is a lady called Bernadette Bohan. Now, Bernadette Bohan has been on the show before, and she's going to be at the Open Mind Conference. So we've asked Bernadette to come on and have a quick chat. Now, we haven't actually heard from her all day. I know she's been very busy doing training. So fingers crossed, she will give us a shout on Skype to say that she's available and ready to come in. But we'll see what happens. I know she's very busy doing the training course today. Right, we have loads of stuff to go through, loads of things to talk about. So we're going to crack on first. But the first thing we do is find out what the communication... there's the teeth again.
There we go.
Let's find out what the communication channels are.
Yes, let's.
The communication channels are email info@oymireland.com, by phone 046 927 1212, and you can also contact us direct through the OYM chat room.
Yes, the OYM chat room can be found at oymradio.com. You will see the link there for the chat room. If you've already signed up and have a username and password, you can log straight in and join in the fun and frolics with everyone there. A big hi to everyone who's already logged in. And also the chat room on People's Internet Radio as well. We're going to monitor both of them for questions. So a big hi to everyone over there also. Also on our website, you will see the usual links there for Facebook, the anti-social media, for Twitter, for Skype, also the email address there, the all-important email address, info@oymradio.com. As we do say, if you're a new listener or you've never contacted us before, if you'd like, just drop us a quick one-line email just to say hi and let us know where you're tuning in from. We also have the TuneIn Radio Link application on the website as well. A link can be found down the bottom, along with some other great links on the little bar down the bottom as well. The footer, as it's known, you will see some links there as well. We also have, or we're also broadcasting on I'm doing it again.
Radio Garden.
Radio Garden, it is. Yeah, I keep
Radio
thinking,
Garden.
is it Sound Garden or Radio Garden?
That's the band.
One of us. Yeah. I don't know my bands, but anyway, radiogarden.com. You will see a map of the world and just drill down to Ireland, and you will see some dots. We are one of those little dots.
Brilliant stuff. Okay, now, loads of things to do. We're going to have a phone-in competition tonight, and Steve will have to get the... if you go to the front page of OYM Radio there, Steve, you might need to have that poster in front of you.
There we go.
Yeah, okay. Right, okay. Right, now a big thanks to Trevor at the Open Minds Conference. He's given away one free ticket to the conference, and we're doing that on the show tonight. Now, it's a 3-day ticket, and the value of it is €95, so a brilliant prize there. €95. It's a phone-in quiz. Our phone... You know, it's an internet phone. You know, every now and again we do have problems with it, but fingers crossed it should be working tonight. And what you have to do is, and this is the question. Now, we're going to give you the question, and obviously you'll need to phone into the show and give us the answer. Now, the thing is, if you're only ring in if you're in Ireland and you can go to the conference. There's no point ringing in from an outside country or if you're not planning to go to the conference for the ticket. I mean, it's just a waste of time. But if you want to go to the conference and you don't have a ticket, then this is the opportune time to actually win a ticket so you can go to the conference. We're going to give you the question.
Can we just mention, sorry, very quickly, if you're listening to the podcast, then obviously the competition is over. This is only for the live show. It's
only for the live show, okay? So just to let you know, because we don't have phone calls during the week with answers for that. Okay, so here is the question, and ring in when you know the answer, basically. Right, and the question is, give us 3 names of speakers who are going to be at the conference. 3 people who are going to be talking at the conference, in the Open Mind Conference in March, 2nd, 3rd and 4th of March. Right, so we leave it with you. Steve, what's the phone number?
The phone number is 046 927 1212. And again, as Alan said, if you are ringing from outside Ireland and are planning on visiting the conference, it's 00353 469 271212. The phone lines are now open.
Brilliant stuff. Okay, so we leave that with you. Right, let's crack on with the information that we have here. Right, our guest last week was supposed to be Michael Vara. Unfortunately, he had no internet connection, and so we were going to reschedule the interview with Mike for a later date. Because we did receive an email from Mike saying sorry that he couldn't make it because the internet went down. There's nothing that he could do, and that's fine. But a big thank you for Thomas for coming on the show and covering for Michael. Much appreciated. Really good show. Again, great information there. Now, we also received an email from a listener mentioning the interview we did with Thomas and that there was no proof of what Thomas says. Unfortunately, this person did not leave an email for us to reply, so we cannot entertain emails like this. If you want to comment on something, leave a valid email. We've said this before on the show. If you're going to send an email and you don't want us to email us, there's no point to send us an email if you don't want us to comment back on, our opinion or our thoughts on what you've said. What's the point? That's just a waste of time, So we're just ignoring emails like that, okay? If you want us to, if you want to be constructive and you want us to reply back, send us a valid email. So that's what happened last week. Right, Steve, you're up next.
Yes, Europe. What about Europe? It's a nice place to live. Yes, the final countdown. Anyway, IrishTimes.com reports the Church of Ireland funds buy stake in NAMA Holding Company. It says Clergy Pensions Fund and representative church body hold a combined 5.75%. The Church of Ireland has emerged as a shareholder in the holding company behind NAMA in a deal that allowed a UK hedge fund to lock into some gains following its purchase of a stake in the agency at the height of the financial crisis. There we go.
Right, okay, well...
That's good information.
Yeah, well, there you go.
If you're a member of the church, anyway.
Yeah, there you go. So, that's the church for you. You know yourself, they have investments in various companies and companies that they disagree with, in the public, but in the background they have stocks and shares in them. There you go, so that's the Catholic Church for you. Right, the other thing is PTSB, Permanent TSB, agrees to scheme to allow defaulting customers stay in their home. The deal with the IMHO and iCare requires customers to qualify for social housing. Permanent TSB has signed up to an initiative which aims to keep customers in mortgage difficulties in their own homes, provided they qualify for social housing. I don't actually like the sound of this at all. The agreement with the Irish Mortgage Holders Association and iCare, both of which are run by David Hall. David Hall was New Beginnings, wasn't he? He was New Beginnings. Will ultimately allow customers defaulting on their mortgage to stay in their homes as long as tenants of iCare housing. iCare housing was set up for the purpose of providing and managing social rented housing for customers eligible for the mortgage to rent scheme. I don't like that mortgage to rent scheme. I don't like it. I've said that before. Since its established last year, iCare agreed to purchase over 100 homes for families in mortgage arrears who are eligible for social housing. The way the deal works is that iCare buys the property from Permanent TSB, the bank writes off any residual debt linked to the property, and the customer then becomes a long-term tenant of iCare in the same property. The customer then has the option to buy back their home at any time from iCare at the price the organisation paid for the property. Right, okay, so they'll probably get the property for pennies on the pound, maybe, from the bank.
Yeah.
And I'd like to see. So how are people going to afford to buy back their house if they don't have the money to even pay the mortgage?
Unless they win the lotto, I mean, it's not
going to happen.
Impossible.
Right, okay. Steve, you're next.
Yes, it's like tennis, isn't it?
It is.
Anyway, a report from neonatal.com says US government finally admit cannabis cures cancer. A conclusive study says marijuana, a plant, has massive effect on curing the disease. The US government has been forced to finally admit that cannabis cures cancer following hundreds of conclusive studies revealing the plant has a massive effect on curing the disease. Despite Jeff Sessions attempting to swim against the tide of cannabis legalization, those who advocate those who advocate the incarceration of cannabis users fail to remember one crucial thing. According to a 2015 article by Mike Adams from Natural News, a group of federal researchers commissioned to prove the government's claim that contains zero medicinal value may have accidentally let some groundbreaking research slip through the cracks, forcing the US government to admit that cannabis cures cancer.
And we've known that for a long time, and it's beginning to.
It's beginning to hit the mainstream. And as we only had a conversation yesterday, and we said that I think it's Holland and Barrett, some of the chemists' shops, the pharmacies over here, they're starting to sell the cannabis oil over here. Obviously, it's not the stuff with the THC, but they are starting to. Okay, so
it's on the list.
It's on the list.
It's going to be coming.
Sorry, I didn't read it.
That's okay. I'll read it. How's your week anyway?
I'm afraid to say about my week in case it's already on the list. Anyway, is that on the list?
I got the video, the surveillance video.
Right. Is that on the list about the Daily Mail article? No. Okay, yeah, it was reported in the Daily Mail during the week that Fizzy Crisps, Fizzy Pop, aka soft drinks, sodas, whatever you want to call them, and also crisps, or for our international listeners, potato chips, they're considered as ultra, the word was there a minute ago, it's just gone out of my head, but they're kind of reported in the mainstream now that they're actually linked to cancers, causing cancers, and seemingly there was a study done by some British researchers, and it's a proper study. It's not by someone in his backyard or his back shed or whatever, but it was a proper study, and they have shown, and the facts were available. I'll get a link to the article, and I'll pop it up on the chat rooms if people want to see it. But they're saying that people who would consume a lot of, say, Fizzy Pop, probably, the usual ones out there that people tend to buy, and there's a lot of ads on TV promoting them. I'm sure we all know the ones we're talking about. But they're consuming those, and also the crisps, and there was a lot of other foods mentioned in the article as well. They're saying that people who just would consume those are at risk of between 10 and 12% higher of developing cancer than those who don't actually use those particular products. So I'll actually get a link for the article, and I'll pop it up during the show there, because it is interesting reading, and the fact that it's coming out in the mainstream, obviously, like the cannabis oil, that's coming out in the mainstream now, and this is coming out about little things that kind of cause cancer, and the fact that it was actually on the Daily Mail in the UK. I'm actually quite surprised that there wasn't many more people discussing this during the week, because I mentioned it to a couple of people in where I work, and I just nonchalantly said, did you happen to see the article in the Daily Mail and about cancer and blah 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 blah, and I was kind of met with the sure everything gives you cancer.
Yeah.
And that was it. They didn't seem that interested at all, which kind of leads me to believe that the way we always talk about the wake-up process and the flu belief system, and it is good, but I think a lot of people are kind of conditioned now, and I think it's obviously by design. So a lot of people are in their own bubble, so to speak, and they have all the information that they want from their social media and from their news channels and the media. And I think anything that we have, it's like we have to get into the bubble. We have to break through the bubble before we can actually reach the person. And I think it's definitely an uphill struggle, because everyone's so conditioned. They've got their smartphone, their iPhones, and all this carry on, and their social medias. And I think that they are just kind of wrapped up in everything that they have. And like, even when you say to, like, as I said to you during the week, I said to one of the people in work, did you see the article? This causes cancer. And the same person kind of they would have crisps with their lunch every day, a packet of crisps every day, but they'd have a yogurt after,
They're the MSG crisps. You're talking about the MSG, yeah. Not the gluten-free ones.
No. These are the fully fat, fully MSG E621 crisps. Yeah. And I mentioned to them as they were. It was actually before lunch, and that was the reaction. Sure, everything causes cancer. Yeah. So
there you go. Well,
a lot of bubbles.
Hopefully you'll never get cancer. Let's put that way.
Let's hope so. But I think there's a lot of people like that in the world today. We've got a lot of bubbles to burst before we can actually give them the information.
Oh boy. We have a long way to go.
Yeah. How was your week?
Yeah, just before we bring Greg on, just a couple of things. The bass guitar, I remember I put a call out there, not really related to Open Your Mind, but there's a lad that he's a friend of my son's, and he's obviously, looking to learn how to play the bass guitar, and his parents are not in a financial position to be able to afford one. And he's a good kid, and the family are a great family and good kid, and it's always nice to try and do something for people who are deserving of it. So I put out a call and I said, look, if anybody had a second-hand bass or a cheap bass, to send us, that would be fantastic. So it just so happened that we had Harry Rhodes on the show 2 weeks ago, and Harry said, I have a bass sitting here doing nothing, you can have that. Fair play to Harry, actually came in yesterday, so we've received the bass. Now, it does need a few things. It obviously needs a new set of strings, it needs a strap, it needs an actual bass bag that fits the bass, and it needs an amp as well. So then we got a donation in from Dougie, good old Dougie, a regular listener to the show, a regular supporter, really good guy. And Dougie sent over a donation and he said, here chaps, that's to help out with the bass. So that's brilliant. So that means now we can buy the bass, we can get the amp, we can get the strap, we can get the bag. And I was speaking to a friend of mine who's a professional bass player, and he plays for RT, and I happened to mention to him, he goes, look, I'll send you a set of strings. So he's going to send over a set of strings over to me as well. So that's brilliant. So you
don't have any friends or mechanics, do you?
No.
Send me over an alternator.
No cars. So it's just brilliant that people are so generous to help out. And as I say, they're good, they're a really nice family, great kids. And if we can do something, we'll do something. That's just what we try and do. So instead of giving him, because the bass it definitely needs new strings. So there's only 3 strings on it at the moment. So it needs new strings and needs to be sorted out. And obviously he needs an amp so he can hear, and he needs a strap, and he needs a bag for it to protect it. So instead of giving him it straight away in that condition, I don't want to do that. I want to be able to give him everything together so we can kind of crack on and start playing the bass straight away. So I'm in the process of sorting that out at the moment. So that's the good news. So a big thank you to everyone, Dougie, to Harry, and to Paul, for the donations. Much appreciated. And there'll be photos to follow when we have it done. We'll take a photo of the young lad with the bass and the equipment. So we'll get that up on Facebook, and we'll send out an email so you can see it. And the last thing before we bring Greg in the derbytelegraph.co.uk, and funny enough, we were talking about this, High Street store becomes first national chain to stock cannabis oil. Number of users have doubled, says the Cannabis Trades Association. Cannabis oil is selling faster than ever now, that is being stocked by nationwide health food store. Holland & Barrett, which has an outlet within Derby's Intuit shopping centre, is now carrying the controversial product, becoming the first national household name to do so. The oil is thought to have medicinal qualities, and according to the Cannabis Trade Association UK, the number of users have grown from 125,000 to 250,000 in the last 12 months, reports the Liverpool Echo. Yeah, of course, why not? I mean, they did the TV show with Pam St. Clement, Pat Butcher from EastEnders, and they went off to America, and there was one or two convinced that they wouldn't touch it because it was a drug, and by the time they come back, they were sold on the product. And we all know about it, so look, big benefit to CBD oil, taking that, and Holland & Barrett selling it. Make sure you get the pure stuff though, don't get the synthetic stuff. It's very important. There is a difference between it. Now, we're going to bring a guest on, and our guest actually might know about this. And I have a good feeling that he does know all about this because he's involved in it. So their guest is Greg Caton, and before we bring Greg on, we're going to get Steve to read out the bio and give us a bit of a background regarding Greg.
Okay, Greg Caton, is an American herbalist, inventor and manufacturer. His journey through this US criminal justice system, the inseparation for his latest book, The Joys of Psychopathocracy, is documented in a free online work, Mediatopia. His case was brought to international attention when he was illegally kidnapped by agents working for the US Food and Drug Administration in 2009. This act was condemned by the Ecuadorian government in 2012 as unfounded in both international and Ecuadorian law, and his deportation was expunged from federal records. Amazingly, he appeared alongside Osama bin Laden in February 2009 as one of the world's most wanted by Parade magazine, following his placement on the Interpol Red List for criminal charges, which were subsequently shown to be bogus. He's the co-founder of Alpha Omega Labs, that's herbhealers.com, and he lives in Ecuador with his wife, Cathryn. I actually have the name of the city where he lives, but I can't pronounce it, so I do apologise.
Well, Greg will be able to tell us. Good evening, Greg. How are you doing?
Very good.
Listen, thanks a lot for coming on the show. We got contacted by one of our listeners, Paula, and Paula sent over the link and she said Greg would be a great guy to get on the show, and obviously with your background and your bio and the stuff you've done, it does sound interesting. But let's sort this out. We had a quick chat the other day about this Interpol thing, and you were saying they weren't going to let you, or they didn't let you into Mexico. And I'm thinking, Mexico is one of the biggest drug places in the world, and they're not letting you into it, which is kind of, kind of weird, ironic, really.
I think, the word would be ironic.
Yeah. Do you want to tell us about it and what happened?
Well, Jeff Berwick's got this website called dollarvigilante.com. He's an anarchist. He has this annual event. It's a very big event. In fact, Ron Paul was there, former U.S. Congressman Cynthia McKinney was there. So a lot of people attended. It's big, and it's called Anarchapulco. And I was invited as a speaker. They have anywhere but somewhere around 30, 40 speakers at this annual event. So I figured, okay, this doesn't sound too bad. I don't have to fly to the United States to go from Ecuador to Mexico. This seems safe enough, and I've been able to travel by air all throughout Ecuador, back and forth between, Cuenca and Quito and Cuenca and Guayaquil. Guayaquil is kind of like the New York City of Ecuador. So it shouldn't be too problematic, should it? So I get my flights, I go up there, and as soon as I get up there, they pull me off the line. They were waiting for me, and I get thrown into a detention cell. This is last Monday. I was imprisoned as recently as last Monday, okay?
Okay.
I mean, there's no bars as such, but it is imprisonment. You've got guards, they follow all the protocols of being imprisoned. And I had to wait there, and what they did is they sent me back to Ecuador, saying that because I'd had legal problems in the U.S. that I would be basically persona non grata in Mexico, and they wouldn't let me in the country. So it was a harrowing experience. I was not even really sure they would send me back to Ecuador. I wasn't sure they weren't just going to, do an extraordinary rendition and just send me off to another country, because anyone who's followed what's happened to me knows I've just been through extraordinary. I mean, my case has been covered by Alex Jones and Mike Adams and a lot of other people that you know in the alternative media. I just did an interview within the last 30 days on these issues with Jeff Berwick and Alfred Laberman Weber and a few other people, all of which I'm sure you know. And so, one has to ask the question, what do you have to do, or what do you have to think, or what do you have to write to be so far up on the hit list that they would actually put you as one of the 10 most wanted criminals in the world and have you in newspapers all over the United States pictured with Osama bin Laden? And, and the answer is that when you either talk or you get too far into certain subject matter, then you become a target. And I started in 1995 talking about a certain discipline within herbalism that is known as escharotic medicine. That's been around for hundreds of years. I trace it back to at least Paracelsus 500 years ago, but it probably goes much farther. That's highly, highly effective in curing cancer. Highly effective. And I wrote an online book. It's a free online read, Metatopia.org, and the people can read to kind of help people kind of follow through, what actually happened to me and how I got to be talking about this and how it really, got the ire of people in the medical industrial complex. And it really enunciates, too, just how little freedom we have. We don't have any freedom. We really don't. I mean, on mundane subjects, you can talk all day long if you want to about the weather and sports and anything that's inconsequential, it's fine to talk about. But once you start talking about things that are really consequential to improving the human condition, we've evolved to a point, or perhaps I should say devolved to a point, where you become an enemy of the state, basically. And it's a very sad development. I talk a lot about this in a recent book I just wrote called The Joys of Psychopathocracy, Why Criminality is Essential to Effective Modern Government, a Rebirth in the Wake of Their Destruction of Our World, because we're seeing habitat collapse all over the world. Not just as a result of Fukushima, but because of geoengineering and other things. That's why you've got all this migrant crisis going on in Europe right now. The reason you have a migrant crisis is because in Northern Africa and the Middle East, you've got large swaths of land where you can't grow anything anymore. And people who don't understand their evolutionary biology do not understand how a species goes extinct, whether it's Homo sapien or any other species.
Can I just stop you there, Greg, for a minute? Just bear with us. Hello, caller. How are you?
Hi there. How are you?
How are you doing? Who's that?
My name is Donald. No, we're not on the air, right?
Yes, we're on the air live at the moment, Donald. Okay. Now tell us, Donald, you obviously ringing in for the quiz. Can you give us 3 names there for the Open Mind Conference?
Oh, I can, yes. Bernadette Bohan, Mary Graham, and Ashley Stephen.
Very good. I think that's the 3. Yeah? I think that's fine. All right, Donald, thanks a lot for phoning in. Sorry about the phone line. The phone line's a bit dicky, so we had to go and get the mobile phone up and running there. For the show. Brilliant, Donald. We have your email there, so what we'll do is we'll send over your details to Trevor at the Open Minds Conference. If you can, I don't know whether you have your full name on the email there. If you can send us your full name, Donald, we'll actually send it down to Trevor and we'll put your name on the door for the Open Mind Conference. Well done. Thanks for ringing in.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right, take care. Bye-bye. Brilliant stuff. Right.
Okay, we have a winner.
So we have a winner for the quiz. Sorry, Greg. That was the one ticket, free ticket for the Open Mind Conference in March there. So that was Donald. Donald's going to send us his details and he wins the ticket there. Well done, Donald. Sorry, Greg. Continue there.
Okay, so so anyways, so in summation, it's kind of like when you get to where you start talking about these things, then you really come under fire. And this is all summated in a book I've written called The Joys of Psychopathocracy. And what I do is I create a social model to show how when you have excessive global government, what you end up doing is you have accelerated entropy, and you actually end up with planetary death. Which sounds extreme to some people, but I actually get into the ecology of it all. I interviewed Professor Guy McPherson last May 7th because I found it extraordinary. This guy has been hounded by the authorities. And if he wasn't speaking so much truth, again, if you want to know where the truth is, just look at who the government is hounding. This guy's been hounded to death. Like I say, I interviewed him last May, and one of the things he says is that at the very highest levels, they know they are actually talking at the very highest levels, never publicly, that we may be looking at the extinction of Homo sapiens within the next 10 to 15 years. We are seeing that much habitat collapse, both in the oceans and on land.
Yeah, we actually had a number of people that you've said there. We've actually had them on the show, and we did do an interview with Guy McPherson last year, and he came on the show and told us and gave us the rundown of what's happening, and it's quite scary, all right.
Yeah, it is, and the reason it is because we have the most influential institutions or entities in society are those that are most prone toward accelerated entropy, and that's how you actually get into a situation like we have now, where we've got 150 to 200 species dying off. I live down here in the Amazon. I speak to the indigenous. They absolutely see it. I see it. I mean, the loss of life the loss of biomass in terms of plants, insects, amphibians, you name it, all across the board. We are seeing massive death of life. And because of the fact that the apex predator on this planet, which just happens to be Homo sapiens, are at an all-time high, we've got almost 8 billion people on the planet, people don't think that, they don't think it's a problem, but what they don't understand is that if you understand overshoot, crash, and die-off, if you understand the concepts behind those as a matter of just anthropology and biology, then you know that a species usually has its greatest numbers just before crash and die-off. And historically, crash and die-off tends to be very rapid and very violent.
Can I just ask you about the indigenous tribes? We are kind of, I suppose, we're sheltered from the rough and tumble of daily life and survival, because all we have to do is go down to the local retail shop and buy what we need, where the indigenous tribes would have to be going out hunting and stuff. What are they seeing on a daily basis that's giving them cause for concern?
Well, you say daily basis. I'm very enmeshed in the indigenous communities here with the Shwari, Kofani, Quechua, Ashwari, and they use ayahuasca here, and I can tell you they use compounds that are a whole lot stronger than what you'll get if you go to a lot of these retreats, these kind of this kind of setup for foreigners. And I journey with them, and I've taken right now well over 300 ayahuasca journeys, and I compare notes with others because certain people, myself included, have visionary experiences of future events when they're doing ayahuasca. Not everyone. My wife did maybe 30 journeys with me and didn't get anything out of it, which makes sense because the shamans here have a saying, and I can tell you it's very true, and the saying is, you do not choose ayahuasca. Ayahuasca chooses you.
Okay.
So you have you either have a certain kind of ability in using it or you don't. And you never take it to get high. You're doing it because you have very specific spiritual objectives in mind when you do it. So I am a true cyclonaut. I am a true long-term entheogenic user. And to answer your original question, what they're seeing is an ecological apocalypse. And I talked about that in an article I wrote in May 2009 on a blog that I have online called the Ashwin. And, I spent there's another indigenous tribe here called the Sarayaku. And I spent time with a Sarayaku woman who does all of these ceramics to kind of, they use ceramics to kind of represent principles that are very important to their tribe. And the most of the ceramics that they're producing, the theme, if you were to try to say, is there something that ties these things together thematically, it's that we're looking at complete global habitat collapse. And the last part of my book, The Joys of Psychopathocracy, talks about how I actually see a spiritual event coming which is actually going to reverse this, because there are forces in the universe that have no intention of seeing this planet go sterile, which is really where we're headed. I know most people don't study the ecology.
Can I touch base with you on that, because that's very important. We've been hearing that here as well with guests that we've had on, and the people are either talking about the new Earth or they're talking about a energy wave, the event, and an energy wave that's going to be hitting the planet coming from the center of the galaxy. People are now at the moment experiencing different things, glitches in the matrix, things that are happening, portals open up, people going through the portals. All this has been reported to us, and people have told us about this, different experiences. So when you're saying that, there's maybe higher beings, let's say higher beings, they do not want the planet to go down the road of sterility and to be kind of wiped out. So I personally think that, things are changing, and although it's taken time, and it will take time, but there's a higher energy or higher power making sure that doesn't happen. Because there's good and bad, as we know about the Cabal and their interest. And Guy McPherson said the same thing. He said that he spoke to Steve Wozniak from Apple, and he moves based on what Guy McPherson told Steve Wozniak. He actually moved his family down to Tasmania because most of the trouble is going to be in the northern hemisphere of the planet rather than the southern hemisphere, and this is why a lot of rich people in Cabal are moving down to the likes of Australia and New Zealand, because they know what's coming.
Well, I absolutely agree with that. I mean, we're seeing the evidence. There's a group of 3 biologists and oceanographers who took a 200-kilometer swath of coastline along British Columbia and did an extensive study. And what they saw was just a ghastly, complete collapse of ecosystem. Just a complete ecosystem collapse. And we don't appreciate the fact that what we've done is we've created a situation. I shouldn't say we, because it's not really we, it's really the elite. They have initiated a set of processes which are irreversible. And I'm sure that if you interviewed Guy McPherson, I'm sure he got into this. And the result of that is that if there is not some kind of outside intervention, we are on the way to making this. We have a situation where the governments of the world have created a situation where there is an open declaration of war against Mother Nature. And I'm sure those that work in high government don't view it that way. You got this, who's that wacko who's currently president of France? Macron? Am I saying that right?
Is that he had his wife seduced him at the age of 13 or something?
Yeah.
Yeah. His wife was
I don't know about that part. I wasn't present for that one.
Yeah.
But,
yeah, apparently his wife is older than him, and she seduced him at the age of 13 or 14 when he was a minor, and that's how they kind of got together. But yeah, he's a bit kind of dodgy. I don't. Steve's going to check up the name there, and we'll find it. Is it?
Well, yeah,
Macron?
he's out there right now saying, forget Trump. He's anti-climate. Oh, we're all here. We're here for. We believe that there is a climate change, and come to France. We'll support your climate change research. It's all horseshit. Yeah, I mean, you know that, right? Yeah. I mean, there's out of one side of their mouth, they're doing everything to accelerate entropy, and out of the other side of their mouth, they say, well, we care about the environment. Horseshit. They don't care about the environment. You never listen to what these people say. You only watch what they do. And when you watch what they do, you get a clear indication of what their objective is. But you never listen to these people.
No.
Never. You only watch, you look what their actions are what you go by, not what they say. And so, the good news is this is coming to a head very rapidly because, these processes that have been initiated, McPherson's got like 69 different feedback loops that are in full swing right now that are taking us in a direction that will take the planet to a lifeless state. And what's most relevant right now is what evidence do we have using quantum hypnotic techniques and others to access the universal mind to get a sense of direction of things. And I wrote a book about this. I'm actually shocked how accurate it was, even though I had no idea what the timeline was. But I wrote a book in 2012 called The Gospel of 2012 According to Ayahuasca. That's the title of the book.
Okay.
And basically what I was told, I started getting visionary experiences in November 2011. And the very first thing I was told was that an event was coming from some energy from the galactic center where the third, fourth, and fifth dimensions would actually merge. And I was actually given details about that, and I write about it.
And when was that going to happen, Greg?
When did I first had the first ayahuasca experience where anything regarding an end time, if you will, anything eschatological, was actually in November of 2011. That was the first time I got any kind of vision where it was clear to me that we were actually going to have like an end, like this was like this big charade, this 6,000-year Luciferian nightmare was actually going to come to an end. That there would be intervention to put an end to it.
And what date was that? Was there any date given or any time given for that?
No, as a matter of fact, I kind of scuttled the book. I didn't promote it. It never sold well because I made no effort to market it because I felt a little embarrassed because in my own state of consciousness, and this was erroneous on my part, I thought that because there was all this hubbub about 2011, I actually thought it might be happening at the end of 2012. So I scuttled it and never thought about it. About 4 years after that, somewhere time around 2016, I started getting phone calls and I started getting emails, by the people who had read it. Do you know that book you read? It looks like things are developing exactly as you described in that book. Too bad you couldn't get a date right. But I don't think anybody can. I think only in the mind of the creator is it really known when this nightmare comes to an end. But the events I describe have been, a lot of people are talking about it now. When I was talking about it, there was not a lot of previous material on it other than people like maybe Dolores Cannon and some intimations by Terence McKenna and a few others. But nonetheless, there wasn't that much material out there on it. Now, years after I came out with what I was being told in ayahuasca was going to happen, you've got a lot of other people coming out with the same thing. And now there's a building consensus that we are headed towards some kind of event where, we are looking at the end of the play. This is like a big play, a big theatrical presentation, and we're coming to the end of it. And I don't know the date. If I was a betting man, I'd say that we're looking at some kind of major cosmological event within the next 2 years. But again, I can't be held to that. I was wrong once before, and so I'm kind of, because of what happened to me personally, I'm kind of resistant to anyone who gets into the whole date setting mode, because I don't think anybody knows.
Well,
I don't think anybody's going to know till it happens.
Does people have ideas, and maybe they have their own ideas based? I know I was listening to an interview with a chap called Jared Rand, which we're hoping to have on the show in a few weeks' time, and the comment he made was that this wave of energy is supposed to be hitting the planet at the end of 2018. Now, how he knows that, or I don't know, maybe, is he connected to the Rand Corporation? Is he involved with the cabal? Do they know? Can they see this coming with their telescopes, they have the technology that we don't have, so maybe he knows something that we don't know. But he did mention this wave of energy, and at this event that people were talking about, it's going to hit the planet and change the energy. And, there's talk about fourth and fifth dimensions, and as I say, the new Earth as well. And the new Earth is apparently here, but it's on a different vibrational level.
I've been on it. Well, I've been on it. I visited it. You take ayahuasca long enough, if you have this ability. I've been on it. I can tell you what the new Earth exists. I can tell you characteristics of it. I can tell you what it's like being on it. I mean, when my sessions would finish, I would literally be crying, weeping, crying. Because to be there and actually have to come back to this hellhole.
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah, if you've actually been on the new Earth, and then your ayahuasca journey comes to an end, and you have to come back here, it's horrific. It's horrific to be here. Energetically, what you experience, if you're sensitive, if you're sensitive on this Earth right now, and you have any kind of empathy for the animals who are dying around you, for the sea life that's dying around you, if you have any kind of sense of the feelings of other creatures, it's traumatic. It's traumatic to even live on Earth right now. And, I'm almost, I think it's almost a blessing for so many people are not sensitive to it and don't have to experience what I go through. There's not a morning I wake up where I don't feel like I have to cry, that I actually have to be here for yet one more day. And the new Earth is, just the act of breathing. Inhaling, exhaling, every movement of your hand, every movement of your leg, to turn your head, every single movement is there's just this wave of joy and bliss. I go into extensive detail about what my experiences on the new Earth have been like in this other dimension.
Can you tell us what it's like? Can you give us a brief description of what you're seeing when you're there, and what the energy's like, and what are you seeing? Other people there? Are there buildings? What's it like?
Building, but much at a much lower entropy level. People live in like kind of thatched homes. There's no language. Everything is telepathic. Everyone has the ability to teleport. Thoughts are far more powerful. You can experience the force of a thought. Unlike now, thoughts are very weak in this very thick third-dimensional reality. So you communicate with other people through thought. You communicate through animals and plants through thought. The act of actually communicating telepathically with animals and plants, there's a thrill to it that's quite indescribable.
And there's no, obviously people, I take it, are eating fruit and veg and all that, and there's no killing of the animals and...
No, there's no. I saw it in different levels. I actually see that there's harmonics of the new Earth. Like, when you're in high school, there's some people who are in the 9th grade, the 10th grade, the 11th grade. There are different gradations of it. So such that you can actually, at the very first level of the new Earth, at a lower level, at the very least, people are vegetarian. There's no slaughter of animals. That doesn't exist.
Yeah.
And the reason is because you have to be able to communicate telepathically with animals. You're such in tune with their consciousness. The very idea that you would slaughter them to eat their bodies is just such an abhorrent thought. It's just unthinkable. On the new Earth, it's unthinkable. There is still eating. but it's fruits and vegetables, and there's a kind of a willing ebb and flow of communication between people and plants. The plants know that the fruit that they bear and the seed they provide is for human consumption. But there's nothing that even remotely comes close to what we would call, there's no violence in society. And the experience, the very experience of living is joyful. You never really sleep. I mean, you have rest, but during rest, you have complete consciousness. It's not like now where you have deep sleep and you're just basically unconscious while you're sleeping. You have complete awareness while you're resting. And
how long do you live there? Do you live longer?
You live as long as you want. There isn't aging.
And you know the indigenous tribes, when you're doing this ayahuasca experience, are they on a frequency that they can move to this new earth, or is there any reason why they're not moving to there?
Well, like everything else, the indigenous are not untouched by what is going on this planet vibrationally. So, like anything else, you've got shaman that are at an extraordinary level of evolution, and you've got those that are hucksters. So it's it's still mirroring the planet at large. The indigenous are not beyond this. But I have met some shaman that are at extremely high level, and they see a split. They see what I see, an actual split, kind of like a separation of the wheat from the chaff, because what I've been shown, and this kind of mirrors the things that Dolores Cannon talked about in her work, is that the people that are responsible for this, they think they are beyond the lords of karma. They think they are beyond it all. They are not. They think they've been able to manipulate reincarnation and basically stave off the consequences of their actions. What I'm showing is this event that's coming. There is a reckoning, and those who are responsible for creating this mess, they will have to live with what they have created. They created this mess, and they'll have to live through it. They're not going anywhere. They've created a mess, and they're going to stay here. And in Christian theology, we have the idea that there's this place called hell, and that people who've lived a very, I'm speaking in the grossest of terms, of course.
Yeah.
But people who've lived a very bad life end up going to hell forever.
Yeah.
Kind of a fundamental building block of Christian theology. What I'm showing is it's not forever. It's just a few 100 million years, which is as good as forever.
Yeah.
These people who have done this, they have no idea what, because basically they're creating a sterile planet. They're not going to be allowed to incarnate any other planets. This planet will go sterile, and they will have to basically wait millions of years and go through the entire evolutionary cycle all over again to go back and basically redeem themselves, more or less.
Well, this is
that's what I was showing you.
Yeah, this is where our kind of understanding. We'll go off to questions in a minute. This is what we were told as well, that 1/3 of the population of this planet is organic and the rest are synthetic. And people who are woken up and their consciousness has changed on frequency, because as you wake up and realize what's going on in the world and you step outside the matrix, your consciousness does rise up. And if you're a service to others, and you understand, you get that point that you serve to others, and you go with that energy. Well, then when the new earth comes in, then obviously these people will move over to the new earth. And as you say, the people who are the negatives and the synthetics and the cabal and all that, well, they will stay on the earth as it is, because that will be the divide between the old earth and the new earth. Now, this wave of energy, if it does actually hit at the end of 2018, or when it does hit in two years' time, whenever, what do you think will happen when the energy hits the planet?
I was showing that people's reaction to it will be very different. Some people, particularly those who are really locked in the matrix, there will be people who actually feel they're going insane. They will actually not know how to handle the energy. They're not going to be able to adapt to it. So you're going to have a lot of maladaptation that's going to produce horrific effects mentally. Those who are ready for it, those who receive this energy, and it's kind of like, what example can I use?
Well, let's put it this way.
What?
It's like, if you think of it, Greg, what we were told is it's like a pendulum, right? At the moment, you have to deal with your shadow side, and what you have to deal with is stay centered. Don't be flighty. Don't be all over the place. Because some people at the moment, with all the information coming out now, are swinging from one side to the other, and they're all over the place. And what you have to do is stay centered, stay grounded, and be aware that things are going on and there's energy changes, and, as I say, deal with your shadow side and be focused.
That's somewhat nondescript. I was given something more specific, that you have to actually use your conscious attention to expand the heart and open the heart, because the energy will come in through the heart.
Yeah. Okay.
That's how you experience it. And then at the same time, what I experience is when this energy hits, when you close the eyes, you'll have this experience. It's the only way I can describe it. It's what I was showing. Is if you were going at hyperspeed through a narrow cave with a fear that if you went off just 1/10 of 1 degree, you would smash into a wall in the cave. That, like, basically, that you're moving it just, if I may borrow from science fiction, that you're moving at warp speed through a tunnel. And that in that process, you actually hold the reins. You know, when you hold a horse, when you're riding a horse, you have to hold the reins. If you let the horse do whatever it's want, you don't hold the reins, you could end up falling off the horse. And at high speed, that's not good for you.
Yeah.
So similarly, that you basically have to grab the reins and have high focused attention and open the heart and be ready to receive this energy through the heart chakra. I was showing that the planet Earth is the heart chakra of the universe. 3 chakras above it, 3 chakras above it. There's 12 chakras, but these are the 7 major ones. And that everything I was showing was having to do with the development of the heart. Because those who actually have the qualities of heart, empathy, compassion, genuine love for others, genuine love and compassion for other species that are around you, these are the qualities that coincide with the energy that one's going to receive when this event happens.
Okay, that's a good description, and you're right. It is from the heart. We have to be more heart-centered. I think we can all agree on that.
I got that information. I got not even from a ayahuasca journey. There's another type of entheogen here called vilca seed. It's extremely intense. As soon as you take it nasally, kind of. The shaman shoots it into your nose and it actually goes into your head, and people can look this up online. I took a vilca journey 3 years ago because I wanted to know specifically what it was like going through the tunnel, and it affected me within 30 seconds.
Wow!
And unlike ayahuasca, which can last 3 to 4 hours, or a San Pedro cactus journey, which can last 12 hours, a vilca journey only lasts you like maybe 30 minutes. It's a very short journey, but it's incredibly intense, incredibly information-packed. So you take it when you want information and you don't want to wait.
Yeah. Okay, well listen, we have loads of questions coming in from our listeners, so we'll get cracking on the questions there. Steve?
Yeah, the first question I have, Greg, is in kind of the new earth, you said like about people when they move their head, and the experience and all this. But is there stress in the new earth? What about people? Like, do people need to work? How do they live? I mean, do they buy houses? Are there mortgages? How does it work in the new earth?
None of those structures exist. There isn't money as we know it. There's.
Is it manifestation?
Pardon? You're able to manifest? You're able to manifest things with thought. The eating is more for the pure joy of it, but you're actually able to manifest food through thought. You're able to change the characteristics of plant through thought. Thought has much greater power than it has here, and the effects of thought are felt instantly, whereas here you have to go through the very thick, dense, third-dimensional. You have to go through all this density for a thought to even have impact. Thoughts are things, and people appreciate that far more on the new earth than they do here.
Yeah, I know people say that when they've taken the ayahuasca and they have had a journey. I know some people when they come back, they say they've had a pleasant journey, and some people say it was absolutely horrific. Obviously before you take the journey, you don't know which one you're going to have. I mean, unless obviously
I've done over 300. I've never had, and I'm going to use the vernacular now. I've never had a bad trip. I mean, I have some trips that are violent, but they're information filled. I don't consider it a bad trip. I don't consider it. Some journeys are easier than others. Some you're going to vomit, and some you don't. But I've never had what I would characterize as a bad trip. I've never had that experience after hundreds and hundreds of journeys with ayahuasca, San Pedro, Malakawa, Brugmansia, Vilcaseed, psilocybin mushroom.
Okay.
But you don't inhale now.
I think you've gone through the list. Right, let's get through the questions, all right?
Yeah. I know, I've never taken the ayahuasca. We have heard some people, we've had people on as well before who have spoken about it, but my kind of view of ayahuasca is when you take it, I'm guessing you're sitting down, you take it, and then you have the journey, but
it's not like that at all.
No.
It's not like that at all. You're laying down, your eyes are closed, you try to eliminate sound and light around you. You got these tourist traps where, you do all this stuff with someone with a tambourine and forget all that. If you're actually doing this for spiritual reasons and you're not doing it because you're a tourist, it's a very quiet experience between you and the ayahuasca plant spirit, and you're laying down, and your eyes are closed, and you're in a meditative state. That's how you do ayahuasca.
All right. So it would be impossible for you to do a Skype interview while you were doing it to kind of narrate your journey, so to speak. No.
No, I'm not saying that, but my eyes will be closed and I'll be speaking. Yeah, as a matter of fact, when I do a ayahuasca journey, my wife is laying to my left, and she has a voice recorder. And she activates it and deactivates it whenever she wants. And throughout the journey, I'll say, I'll start talking. When I start talking, she starts recording. And she'll ask questions about future events. And in this altered state of consciousness, I will answer my wife's questions.
Oh,
very good.
That's interesting.
Okay, let's go.
Maybe we might do an interview while you're. I mean, I'm not kind of making little of it, but that would be a very interesting thing, like to have actually someone who's on a journey at the same time, and we can actually
it's actually technically feasible that I could be on a ayahuasca journey, and you could be interviewing me while I'm on this journey. That's actually technically feasible.
That would be fantastic. Yeah,
it definitely would.
Right, let's get the questions down.
Chris has just mentioned here, he said his wife had a horrific ayahuasca experience. It wasn't what she wanted, but in hindsight, it was what she needed, he says. And we've heard that from many people before. I think you've kind of said the same thing.
Well, they have a saying. I'm trying to think of it to translate it. Basically, the translation is, where you are crooked, ayahuasca will make you straight.
Okay,
that's brilliant.
Right.
Okay, good saying.
What else we got, Chris?
And by the way, Chris is another comment about Chris's comment. First of all, again, not everyone has this ability. If you were to talk to my wife about her ayahuasca experiences, she will tell you, I saw snakes and spiders and geometric patterns, but I never got any information. I never got anything revelatory. Now, my wife had an incredible San Pedro journey about 6 months ago. See, just like there's people in your life you like, and there's people in your life you don't like so much, we all have people that we feel closer to based on just personality types, right? Well, the same exists in the plant world. There's some plant spirits you'll feel great kind of rapport with, and others you don't. I've taken all these different substances, but, when all is said and done, ayahuasca is my first love. And in fact, in the Gospel of 2012, according to ayahuasca, I go into this whole thing how my relationship with the ayahuasca's plant spirit, because she is female, it borders on the romantic, really.
Okay. Well, right, do you want to...
Yeah, loads more questions.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm just looking at the time. That's why I want to try to get through as many questions as we can.
Right. Moon Girl on People's Internet Radio chat. She wants to know: does Greg travel the universe, and obviously on your journeys? And have you ever met aliens? And I'm gonna interlink that with Chris's question as well, because Chris said, Dolores Cannon often said the Greys are our custodians, and if so, why are most experiences with the so-called Greys negative?
I call them in my book, The Joys of Psychopathocracy, I call them the overlords. This planet is completely run by extraterrestrials. If you are a purely human, if you have pure human DNA, you do not arise to any significant level of power. It's just that is. And there's all kinds of hybrids in between. There's different levels of integration between various ET bloodlines and human bloodlines. But, I mean, the people that run this planet, the very qualities that we mark as the pinnacle of humanity, compassion, empathy, unconditional love, to them, this is anathema to them. In their world, this is anathema, because what they celebrate, what's most precious to them, is exploitation, fear, all the things that the archons feed off of. This is the food. This is what they live for.
They loosh this energy from us, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, to get into the language of Robert Monroe, yeah, they feed off the loosh, and that's and these are the people that are in charge, and this is what they live for. So, but to answer the what was the lady's name? What was the lady? There was Chris, and who was the lady?
That was Joan.
Joan, yeah.
Joan.
Okay. In my journeys in ayahuasca, I've encountered different groups. I've actually sat in on meetings of ET councils. I have encountered angels. I have encountered archangels. I've encountered Michael, Raphael, Ariel. I have encountered demons who don't present themselves as demons. It takes me a moment to figure out what they are, and everything in between. And I can tell you that there are myriad different levels in hell, myriad different levels in the heavens, and in between. There's too many levels to count. And not only do they exist in this dimension, but they exist in parallel universes. And I get into that in my 2012 book as well, because we don't live in a universe, we live in a multiverse. I encountered another Greg Caton, freaked me out so bad that in the fall of 1979 I dropped out of school. I couldn't handle it. I was so freaked out by encountering a soul fragment of me who actually had my same name, Greg Caton, on a parallel universe. My mother was a kind of a Hungarian gypsy, if you will, very psychic, scarily so I can add. And so I asked my mother about it. You know, what am I going to do? Have you ever encountered any of us in parallel universes? And my mother's reply was, sweetheart, I have counted 135 Greg Catons in other universes. I was so shocked by that, even coming from my own mother, that I said, well, jokingly I said, well, you know, quantum physicists say that theoretically there are billions of parallel universes. How could there be only 135 of me? I was just joking. My mother, who really did have the innocence of a child, didn't know I was joking. And she looked at me with the saddest eyes I've ever seen, and she said, oh dear, I'm so sorry. I got tired of counting.
Okay. That's well, yeah. I mean, the parallel universe thing, I can kind of appreciate that and understand that, definitely. I agree with you on that one. We have more questions coming in. I'm just keeping an eye on the time there. Steve, if you want to, that's a good question from Chris, actually, top one.
Yeah, sorry, we just want to mention, the question earlier was actually from Moon Girl on PIR. We do have a question online here from Joan as well. Yeah, we'll just go to Joan's question because we did mention it. She wonders, and I think you may have kind of half answered this, Greg. She said she wonders, do any politicians or governments use the means of telepathy to their advantage? If they can find and see what is happening, can they use it against the people? And obviously, I mean, would it be possible that the politicians could obviously they can go on journeys as well and get answers and come back and use stuff against us, I suppose?
Well, the paradox of it all is those who are at the very bottom of the rung of the ladder, pure human beings, actually are most predisposed to having this ability. A lot of these ETs have got a lot of strains of what we would broadly refer to as AI. They can try to journey all they want to. They're not going anywhere. Okay? These are spiritual abilities. And so when you enter into the realm of AI, particularly if you do so willingly, all these rock stars and Hollywood actors who basically sign their name, sign their soul away to Lucifer, people don't understand what they're actually giving up. The most precious thing you have is
your soul.
The full complement, your soul, and the full complement of your abilities as a human, even if they're suppressed, even if there's all these latent abilities you don't know you have. You don't know, even now as you're speaking, that in a latent form, you have the ability to teleport. You have the ability to communicate telepathically. You have the ability to use your thoughts to manifest matter, because thought precedes matter. We have these abilities, they're latent. But once you start giving these things up, then people have no idea how disastrous taking that course is.
Yeah, well,
it's the most precious thing. It's the most precious thing that makes us human. It's what constitutes our true humanity.
Well, this is what we say about what value do you put on your integrity. Because the 5 things that the Cabal look for is the weakness in people, is the politics, religion, drugs, money, and sex. And they will look at individuals and go, why, how can we get at that person? Which one of them is their flight of fancy that we can affect, or maybe we can pay them off or give them money or do something? And unfortunately, we're talking to somebody that we know, Thomas, who's been on the show before, who has a member of he's a spokesman for the foundation, and he was saying that the majority of the alt media is actually controlled opposition. They are manipulated and controlled. So there is only a small people on the planet who's actually trying to make a difference in a positive way. And I do believe we will get there. I do believe that we are winning, because there's a lot of changes going on in a positive way, and a lot of things are not being mentioned on the internet and people don't know about that's going on. So things are happening. Now, there's other questions here. I'm just going to keep an eye on the time. Do you want to shoot them over to Greg and we'll try and get through them?
Yeah, we'll try to fire them over. Maybe Greg, if you can just give us a one-line answer, if at all possible.
Okay.
Just to, because time is against us.
Sure.
You mentioned earlier about there was going to be intervention, and Chris is wondering, intervention by whom?
Well, at the very highest, there are celestial levels. There are, being in the archangelic realm, there are higher beings that are very close to the Creator, and this is a bit of an experiment to see, just how far things could go before away from the light, before we revert to its opposite. I'm thinking now of the I Ching. The most fundamental principle of the I Ching is that when things proceed to their opposite, they go back in the opposite direction to its opposite. So it's kind of like a rubber band. You can only stretch it so far, and then it snaps back to its point of origin. And so,
are we getting there now? Are we getting it as the rubber band being stretched now?
Even I, in my experiences, don't know with familiarity. These levels are of such a being. I had one encounter. I'm trying to say this real quick. Again, I'm conscious of your time factor. I encountered these beings, and it was a group of 7 of them. That they were very high angelic level, and I said, "We have no names. There are no names. Everything is vibration." And I said, "I'm not sure that I understand." And the reply I got was, "Do not even dogs in your realm know each other by their scent? Is there not in the dog world a complete absence of name?" And I thought about that for a moment. I thought, it's strange, that in some way we've devolved to the point where we've lost abilities that even our dogs have.
True. That's a good point, Steve.
Okay, ayahuasca. Is it possible to build up an immunity? Says Moon Girl.
Never happened for me. I don't want to speak for everyone. I haven't heard of that. I mean, most of the people that I knew, I've known shamans that are in their 80s, and they've been doing ayahuasca since they were 12. Never built an immunity for them. Every journey is a journey.
Okay. Chris, can Greg tell us his take on the archons?
Well, they're everywhere. And it's gotten worse. You've got more Because what's happened is the Earth has become more negative and vibrationally ascended to even lower levels. It creates a home for them, and it's easier for them to kind of go through this permeable membrane between their dimension and ours. So, I mean, you definitely experience their presence. You're aware of their presence. You may not communicate with them. You don't want to communicate with them, but you're aware of their presence when you do a ayahuasca journey. At least I am.
Okay, thanks. I hope that answers that one, Chris. And finally, Moon Girl on PIR. She's wondering, what is your knowledge re crypto? And that's obviously cryptocurrencies for humankind. I mean, do you have any experience of cryptocurrencies in the New Earth?
There's nothing like that on the New Earth. There's nothing. There's first of all, money is primarily a tool that's created for manipulation by central authority. There's nothing like money on the New Earth. There's nothing like that. There are shared. There is respect for the individual. There's a gentle balance between individualism and collectivism, and it's the kind of this ebb and flow. But everything addresses itself to the supreme joy and bliss of the individual.
Sounds like a great place. Sounds like a great place. Because if you're really sensitive,
if you're really a sensitive person, and you see this profoundly in the Earth, you don't want to be in the presence of unhappy neighbors. You don't want your own joy to be detracted by being around people who are unhappy. So the happiness of all becomes the importance of every individual. You want to see everyone happy. But it's natural. You never think about it in those terms. It's just natural.
I was listening to an interview there the other day, Greg, and somebody was saying that people did actually vibrate to the New Earth frequency and got there, but they started to bring in the old Earth system hierarchical control, and obviously their frequency or the energy went down and they were sent back. Obviously, I take it on the New Earth, this system that we have in place, because there's no problem being a leader, but you don't want somebody to follow you. You want to lead by example, but you don't want somebody being up there saying, I'm better than you. And this is what happened, and this is why they were sent back.
There's no hierarchical. There's nothing hierarchical. And there's nothing hierarchical. First of all, there's nothing that, like on the New Earth, what you think of as leadership. First of all, the talents are spread diversely, and there's such an appreciation for individual talent. There's just this kind of networking of personal abilities and talents, because even on the New Earth, certain people are better at certain things than others.
Yeah,
we're not robots. We don't come on a production line. Each individual is not different. On the New Earth, there still are unique talents and abilities, and there are appreciation for it. But everyone's abilities, whatever your abilities might be, they are amplified on the New Earth.
Brilliant. And so we have about 8 minutes left. On a positive level, what should people be doing? What's your recommendation, and what should we focus on for the next couple of years? What should we be aiming to do?
It's about development of the heart. It's about, well, if you actually had to put it in the form of an actual technique, I would say even walking through nature and realizing and focusing on the heart chakra and realizing that you are part of that ecosystem, and that you are there, that you two have a feeling and an empathy for everything around you. Yeah, it's about focusing on the whole, and it's about abandoning fragmentationalism, because that's what's basically our culture is all about, is fragmentation. But in the New Earth, you appreciate everything in its wholeness, and you see yourself as part of a whole. You don't see yourself as separated from the whole. You're part of a whole. You're part of a whole entirety of creation. And that in itself is a joyful experience.
So we get away from the hierarchical system, materialism, and the divide and conquer.
It doesn't exist. Money doesn't exist. There are no cryptocurrencies. There's no, those things don't, they just don't exist. They're not necessary. When people have the ability to manifest matter with thoughts, use thoughts to manifest matter, do you think anyone's going to really need money?
Exactly. Yeah. No, that's interesting. The whole idea about it's quite fascinating, the whole New Earth and the energy changes and what people are experiencing. And there's talk, obviously, you hear people saying all the time, we have we've come down here for this time, for this moment on the planet, for this event to take place, and our soul contract and the this is the agreement that we've come down to help and help educate people, I suppose, to a certain extent, and to be here for when the event happens. So, if Guy McPherson's saying about in the next 10 or 15 years about the Earth, and what's going to happen to that, and he's crunching the numbers to get that. I do think when Guy came on, he was the information was brilliant, but he had no solution at the end of it. So I'll just ask you the question: if we had an unlimited budget, could we, as human beings, change the path of the planet?
It's not on the divine plan. It's not going to happen because it's not on the divine plan. And the reason it's not on the divine plan is because there has to be a mechanism by which those who have brought the earth to its present state, who are recalcitrant in changing course, and they are recalcitrant, they're not changing, they have to live with what they've created. So it's not going to change. It is what it is. But there is an exit strategy for those people who are basically ready to move on to a kind of existence that's in tune with the way the Creator intended it. Or as I say in my 2012 book, life as you know is meant to be lived. Life as you know you were meant to live it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we shouldn't be doing what we're doing. This, 40 hours a week working and paying to live on the planet and struggling and trying to survive and all that. I mean, that's a manifestation and a creation of the Cabal. And that's the Babylonian system.
It says in the Upanishads, the purpose of creation is the expansion of happiness. There's nothing left of that impulse that brought about creation in the first place. There's none of it left here. One another thing I was showing in my ayahuasca journeys is that the Mother Earth is not even here anymore. When a snake sheds its skin and the snake moves on, and the skin is just kind of this lifeless proteins or whatever it is, it just kind of sits there. And basically what I was showing is that the Mother Earth was already migrating to the new Earth, and that this Earth was already being abandoned by the kind of spiritual forces that undergird the reciprocal activities that allow life to continue as it is. So this is another contributor as to why we're losing 150 to 200 species a day. They don't want to be here. They don't want to be here.
So how about
when a plant goes extinct, do you know that plant spirit still exists? And it mourns its lack of representation on the third dimensional level? I actually saw that. I actually saw the spirits of extinct plants. And just because a species of plant goes extinct doesn't mean that the plant spirit doesn't still exist. And it literally mourns its lack of representation in the third dimension.
So how bad does it have to get, Greg, before changes take place, or this new Earth? How bad do we have to? I mean, are we going to go back to Neanderthal times? Are we going to be fighting each other for food on the streets, or what way is it going to go, do you think?
For those who don't ascend, it's pretty dire. I mean, and this is one of the things that Guy McPherson again emphasizes. He says that we have passed the point of no return. There's about a 40-year lag time between the things we do to the environment and feeling the full effect of it. So if tomorrow we could get rid of all the cars and we could get rid of the methane hydrates released in the Arctic, and we could get rid of the building up CO2, and we could solve the problems of all these even the leaks that we're not being told about from these nuclear power plants. And tomorrow everybody is a good little boy and girl. Wouldn't make any difference. We've already passed we've had an opportunity. We've passed the point of no return. And as Guy McPherson has said, to the people at the very highest, the elite, because he's had some conversations with them, and this goes well beyond Steve Wozniak, they know that the jig is up. They know that the jig is up. So people better prepare to graduate to something better, because those left behind, the Mad Max scenario doesn't begin to properly describe the narrative. Or not the narrative, but describe the conditions that people would be subjected to. This is what happens when you don't properly take care of your planet. Life is a precious thing. Life is a precious thing, and when you don't appreciate it, and you don't nurture it, you don't foster it, and you don't encourage the reciprocal activities that undergird ecosystems, then you get what we have now. And it doesn't get better from here.
Okay, well, Greg, we'll leave it there. Again, just a thank you for coming on. That was great information, and I think what we'll do is definitely down the line we'll do an update with you, because, you know, maybe at the end of the year or something we'll get you back on and we'll get an update on any news that you have, because it is a fascinating subject to talk about, and any changes that you might come across on your ayahuasca experience. A big thank you for coming on, and thanks to Paula for recommending Greg. Very good information there, and great feedback on the chat room there. Really giving great feedback for you, Greg, for the interview tonight and the information that you've said there. I'm going to pass you over to Steve. Steve's going to get all your contact information where people can find your website and find out more about yourself. Steve.
Yeah, great. As Alan said, Greg, it's fantastic information. A lot of chatter on the chat room, positive in relation to the information. As Chris said, thank Greg on behalf of all the listeners. Great info delivered in an intelligent manner. We do have, and we have throughout the show, put up links to the website there, gregcaton.com, and also mediatopia.org. Are there any other links that you can throw out there where people can find even more information?
It's most of the basic information about myself where people can communicate to me is through gregcaton.com. If people want to look at what I do on the herbal side of things, the international side is alphaomegalabs.com. And, so then they have a way to communicate with me, and they can see what my work is in the herbal world. And then if they want to write to me, they can use the contact button on the gregcaton.com site.
Brilliant stuff. Greg, thanks again for coming on. Much appreciated. Just stay with us there for a minute. We're just going to go off to a musical break, and we'll be back after this.
This is Open Your Mind Radio on OYMradio.com and peoplesinternetradio.com.
Okay. Just to set the scene, just very, very quickly. If anyone's wondering why that record was played, it's just because both Alan and I shouldn't be saying this, but we were at a pantomime yesterday, and anyone who knows, near the end of a pantomime, while everyone's getting ready for the finale, there's a couple of jokers on stage, and they do a little dance with the audience, and that was a song yesterday for the dance.
I was going to say, oh no, it wasn't.
Oh yes.
So
that's
anyway, the pantomime.
Yeah.
Right, okay, brilliant. Right, now our next guest is a lady we've had on the show before, Bernadette Bohan. Great information. Bernadette does a fantastic job helping people, educating people about healthy eating and all the benefits of that, because she's been through it herself. So we're going to get a quick information about Bernadette and her background for people who don't know about Bernadette, and then we're going to talk to her about the Open Mind Conference and what she's going to be talking about on that. Good evening, Bernadette. How are you doing?
Hi, Alan. Lovely to talk to you.
Great. Thanks for coming on. Now, Bernadette, we've had you on the show before, and we've had great chats about food and what to do and how to do it, and the juicing and everything else. And you've loads of books out there. But for people who actually don't know you, or new listeners who've tuned into the show, can you give us a quick bio of your background and why you got into food and the benefits of eating food properly?
Yeah, of course. Well, when I was 33, I developed cancer of the lymphatic system. But I didn't really learn anything. I did the normal things. You know, you go, you do all the treatment, and I didn't really learn anything about the disease. I had two small children at the time, 7 and 4. And, I was a busy mum. And I kind of thought it was a blip in my life, and I'd get over it and put it to the back of my mind. And but then I went on, and 12 years later it came back in the breast. And at that stage I was older, and I don't know about wiser, but I decided I was definitely going to find a way to help myself. I began to read a lot, attend lectures, and educate myself. Now, this was 18 years ago, Alan. So then I began to adopt a living food, plant-based lifestyle. And it's very trendy now to live a plant-based lifestyle. It's becoming huge. We see people like a lot of the big stores now starting to bring in plant-based nutritionists, people like Tesco's and things like that, for their vegan ranges. So, but way back 18 years ago, nobody was doing this. And especially here in Ireland, there were, of course, in Europe and in the States, but there was very little of it here, essentially, that I knew of. And my family, my friends all thought I was crazy eating a raw living food light diet. And I, juicing vegetables all the time and drinking wheatgrass. So it was quite a change. But here I am 18 years later. And in that 18 years, I made myself a promise that if I found a way to improve my health, I would spend my time passing it on to others. And so I began to teach others what I was doing. And my home was full of people coming all the time, looking for help and asking about what I was doing. And they kept saying to me, you need to write a book about this. So I didn't even think I could write one book, never mind 5. And I did. I wrote a couple of chapters, sent it to HarperCollins, which is one of the biggest publishers in the world, and they took it straight away. And from there, it ended up that, But as I say, I still spend my time teaching ordinary people like you, like me, constantly. The steps that help me improve my lifestyle.
And it is very important. We've heard this time and time again about health and the foods that you eat. Now, we're both aware, Steve's a vegetarian, and we're both aware of, the chemicals that are out there in the foods. And the more you get back to nature, the better it is. And the longer the sell-by date or the best before date is, the worse the food is for you. So the closer you get to eating it as it's coming out of the ground, the better. And I have to say, I know you started your own garden, Bernadette, and I did a little experiment myself last year, and I grew my own carrots. And I have to say, what a difference in the taste by just growing them. It's just a complete difference.
Well done to you. I'm no gardener, so I'm not. I sprout. I do a lot of sprouting, that type of thing. But, I would agree with you. When you eat anything organic, something you grow yourself, it always tastes all the better, so it does. And especially, where it's coming from.
The one thing that I've said to people before is that when you go into the likes of Tesco's or Super Value or any of the big stores and you see the health section, and I've said this to one or two people, and you can see their mind kind of working, and you kind of say, well, if that's the health section, that food's good for you.
What does that make the rest of them?
Exactly.
The rest of the foods in the store. Oh, absolutely. I say it to my students all the time. You have to think, if there's a health section in your store, what's the other foods in the store? But, really, it's all about education. And we have no excuse now. Way back 18, 20 years ago, you only had a book that you could read. You had a lecture you could attend. Now you can look something up on Google in 2 minutes flat. You can, or 2 seconds flat. And so, we don't have any excuses. And every other program on our television is about, improving your health, and, what foods to eat. We're inundated with. The only thing, it can be a bit confusing. But in general, if you stick close to Mother Nature, well, you pretty much have it right.
Exactly. And I think more and more people have to look at doing that because of, the way the food is, all the kind of chemicals that are there. And I know we talk about it all the time, the aspartame, the MSG, the fluoride in the water. And even though, because we were told that even if you have a healthy diet, if you're in an unhealthy environment, that doesn't help either. So you have to take in to consider the likes of Wi-Fi and all that kind of stuff as well. That's to be considered because that's all bad for you. I know when we had Walter Graham on the show, Walter's a great guy, loads of information. And the videos that we done with Walter, he's in my house and he's pointing his smoke detector at my Wi-Fi and my microwave. This is going back a few years. And he's going, there's the signal. That's radiation coming out of these devices. And of course, we got rid of our Wi-Fi. I switched off the Wi-Fi, and the microwave went in the bin, and the hands-free phones, they went as well because they're lethal. And these are the things that everybody has to consider as well as the diet. But one of the things I want you to talk about, because we did have a conversation there recently, and you told me about this blanket that you've come across in Germany. Do you want to talk about that?
Oh, yeah, it's very interesting. It's pulse electromagnetic frequency. And I was in the Institute in Florida last year, and I had thought for a long, long time about buying one of these. It's really a mat that you lie on. And I got more information on it when I was in the Institute because they actually have them there. And so I came home and I bought it. And what I've discovered now in the period of time that I've had it is it's incredible for pain. I had a bit of a knee injury and the pain is just gone from it. Now it's an expensive machine, but this is the future in healing. At the moment, we're diagnosed with frequency, like MRIs, ultrasound. These are all frequency diagnostics. But the future, what they say for the future will be that we will be healed with these electromagnetic frequencies. If you look at your body, we are electric beings. If you drop dead with or you fell on the floor went into cardiac arrest, it's not that your diet or anything like that that's going to bring you back. It's going to be 2 electric probes. And so proving that we are electric beings. And if we look at the blood system, your arteries are 11.5% of the network, the blood network. Your veins are 14.5%, but your microvessels are 74% of the blood system. And those microvessels are 1/10 the width of a human hair. So you can imagine how hard, if the body has a bad diet and the blood is sticky and viscous, how difficult it is for the heart to pump through those 74% of the blood system through those tiny, tiny microvessels. So what this does is it moves everything. It moves the blood around the body and brings oxygen to the cells. And so phenomenal thing for pain. I had a woman recently who is she's in a wheelchair and she's got great relief from it, and she's like more or less paralyzed, not fully, but more or less paralyzed, and she's been able to raise her arms in the 3 months she's been using it, which was unheard of before that. So that's the kind of thing you see with people when they start to use these therapies, really, that can help the body get things moving and bring oxygen. Oxygen is everything inside the cell.
Have you heard about the oxygen therapy that some people have gone to, they start using, obviously just pumping pure oxygen into the body, or the level, I know that can't be pure, but maybe there's a percentage, but it's oxygen treatment or some kind of treatment.
Oh,
for
absolutely.
cancer. Yeah.
And I've used it myself, both in my home, and I've also used it in the Institute. In the Institute, they have hyperbaric chambers, which most people will know is what divers use when they come up too fast and they have to go into the chamber in order not to get the bends. But if you use those chambers, these hyperbaric chambers, they pump pure oxygen into your cells. we breathe in oxygen now at around about 23%. With pollution, that's even become more reduced. So to be able to pump your oxygen into the cells, you couldn't do anything better for it.
Yeah,
So,
no.
yeah, there's lots of therapies, lots of different things that can be employed, especially if one is suffering with the disease.
I was in the Mater Hospital there the other day, Bernadette, a family member's in getting an operation, and she's recovering at the moment. And it was very, very upsetting to see these people with tubes coming out of them and in bed. And you know, I call it 19th century medicine because it is. You know, we had Dr. Lorraine Day on our show a couple of times, and she's a proper medical doctor and an ex-trauma surgeon. And she said, doctors only good for two things: giving you tablets and taking your body parts out. And she herself had cancer and fought back using the juicing system as well. And when we have all these treatments now, I don't know what your take is on the CBD oil. But we read an article out there earlier on about Holland & Barrett now selling it, and the increase in sales alone for people buying it and the improvements people have felt by taking the CBD oil has been fantastic. What's your take on that?
Well, you know, if we look at the words, just on your first point, you know, in the words of Thomas Edison, the doctor of the future will give no medicine but interest his patients in the care of the human frame, in diet, in exercise, in, you know, all of this. And they were Thomas Edison's words. As regards the oil, you know, lots of people find it helpful. If there's something like that you're using and you're finding it helpful, I think people should have access to it. It's, you know, it's a huge big area that is difficult to address, because you have some people on one end saying it's quite addictive, and you have other people then saying, well, you know, to go through the pain that they go through, you know, nothing is healing the pain. So, you know, with all of these things that we take into the body, unless they're, which the oil is, of course, unless they're plant-based, they have a cost. But that's a plant of a different nature, you know?
Yeah.
And so, you know, you have to assess these things for yourself.
Each to their own, I think. They have to decide what resonates with them and choose between what they want. I still think at the end of the day, we can take all the supplements. Like I take serapeptase, spirulina, I actually had today. And I try and avoid the nasty stuff as much, but you know, there's certain things that, you know, when you have a limited budget, you can only buy certain things. But I do think we have to look back at our diet, and I think, you know, what we put in is what we get out, and I think that is important. Now, you did send us over a copy of your book. Thank you very much for that. The book, your latest book, I think, which is Raw, and has all the ingredients in it of how to juice and what to use, which is brilliant. I still think, and I know I said it to you the last time when you were on the show, I'd love to see you doing DVD videos of how to do the juicing, and just having an instructional DVD guide, and that will follow up your book, you know, because there are people like me who get confused with more than 5 ingredients, and sometimes it's great to see people doing it. And I'd love for you to bring out a DVD to show people how to do the juicing and all that, and breaking it down. And I don't know if you have thought about doing that. Have you considered?
Well, I actually have a DVD, Alan. I'll have to send you that next time. And no, I have a DVD that it really explains the lifestyle and shows people what I do. And I actually find it quite tough to do it, because I enjoy interacting with people, and, you know, they're asking me their questions on health and things like that. But to actually do it just in front of a camera, you know, you don't feel you're actually communicating with them. But, yeah, no, I have it. So you're putting it up to me there now.
I'll put it up there. Now, you're going to be on the Open Mind Conference, as are we. We're on the Saturday. The Open Mind Conference, again, is on March second, third and fourth. And we had, earlier on, we had Donald on the show ring us in and get a correct answer to the question that we gave him. So that was a free ticket for Donald that went to Donald for the show. You're going to be on, I think you're on Friday night, Bernadette, are you?
Yes, that's right. I am. I'm on the Friday evening.
Okay.
And
what are you planning to cover?
Well, I want to speak about simple ways that people can improve their health naturally. You know, we don't want to make it too tough for people because you do it for 2 weeks and then you stop doing it. But if you can give people stepping stones into making these small changes, you know, then you're home and dry. Then you win them over. They go home. They start doing it at home. And then they want to know more. So that's when you know that you've really been successful. That when they're adopting it, when you see, I get a lot of young mothers and fathers now, and they're adopting it for their children. And there's nothing that gives me more fulfillment, really, than knowing that you're going to affect the next generation's health.
Definitely.
You know, like, that is just probably the biggest kick I get. I get people sending me pictures all the time of their children drinking their green juice or drinking wheatgrass before they head off to, you know, Montessori or school or something like that, and it's just the best thing ever.
It's brilliant to get the next generation doing that. Now,
Absolutely.
Since we spoke to you last, obviously you're on a learning curve like everybody else. We're learning about the do's and don'ts and the things out there that we have to try and avoid. Since we last spoke, is there anything that you've come across that you'd want to share with us to say, well, I wouldn't be kind of touching that because of X, Y, and Z? Have you come across anything like that?
Well, you know, in the early days, I used to use, you know, you use a lot of fake sugars or healthy sugars, as they call them, you know, xylitol and now I don't really use sugar anymore of any description. But, you know, some people like sweeteners. I can do without it now. I find I'm gone the opposite way. Anything sweet triggers me. But stevia is the one thing I would say. Like, you get people say honey or agave or xylitol are healthy sugars. They're not. And that was a big change that I discovered like a few years into it. And then, as I say to you, there's just lots and lots and lots of therapies. But probably the biggest thing I've really learned in the last few years is how much the mind affects our health. Because, you know, it drives everything in the body. And when I wrote my book, The Survivor's Mindset, it was because I listened to the people that came to me. And they literally were telling me, I know what caused my cancer. I know what caused, you know, my mother died. I was separated. I had a very bad childhood. My father was an alcoholic. You know, it was all manner of human emotion. And that really made me look into the role the mind plays in our health. And 100%, it is by far the thing that drives, you know, our health into whatever, you know, area, like whether it's depression, whether it's not taking care of ourselves, whether it's stress, you know, overworking, over everything in all kinds of areas, whether we're overindulging with drink, whether it's overindulging with gambling, whether it's overindulging with shopping. It's, you know, we get fixated on things, and, you know, a lot of this stuff is not healthy for your mind to be doing all the time.
Definitely. Well, that ties into a guest that we had on last year called James McConsky. He talks about German New Medicine. and the whole process. As you said, when does his kind of the German new medicine theory, or I won't say theory, but they've actually cured people of certain diseases, and the principle is that anything that's a biological shock to the body will actually trigger something. So where the brain has a relay, the signal goes to the relay in the brain, and that relay is attached to a body part. So depending on what happens, depends on what body part is affected. And the whole idea of German new medicine is that you go down the emotional route, and you think back to when it happened, and then you have to make changes, and then that will kind of repair itself once you do that, once it's treated. And apparently they're having great success with this German new medicine. So I totally agree. It's not just a case of changing your diet, but it's also changing your mindset as well, and focusing on the positive as much as you can. I mean, the game is, as you probably know, Bernadette, and I'm sure you see it yourself, that the system is designed to keep people down, keep people in servitude, and keep people working away doing the 40 days a week and struggling, because people who are struggling won't rebel, and that's an old saying. And this keeps people down on the negative energy and negative vibration. And what we try and do, and our guest that we had on before yourself was saying the same thing. Basically, be careful, be wary of your thoughts, and try and focus on the positive as much as you can. I think that's something that we all have to be aware of. But Bernadette, a big thank you for coming on. I don't know, are you staying over on the Friday, or are you heading back on the Friday night?
No, I'm there. I'm staying over, yeah.
All right, so you might see us on Saturday morning, because our talk, we're forced up on the Saturday morning, so we're going to be there if you fancy coming down and hearing us gabble on for an hour or so at the conference.
Lovely.
Brilliant stuff.
I look forward to it, Alan.
Right. Listen, Bernadette, before you go, I want you to give out, unfortunately Steve had to fly. He has to go to the airport and pick up his wife. So he's left me holding the reins there. He has to go and do what he has to do. So I'm going to just ask you for all your website links and where people can find you so they can read more about Bernadette Bohan and find out more about you. Can you give your details out there?
Yeah, of course. Well, they can just Google Bernadette Bohan, Bohan, and or my website is www.changesimply.com. So yeah, so that's me. They can find me there, or they can contact me on Facebook. I'm up there, Change Simply blog, and I'm on Twitter and Instagram, all of that. So they'll find me under Change Simply.
Brilliant stuff. Easy to track down. Great stuff. All right, Bernadette, stay with us there for a minute. We're just going to go up to a musical break, and we'll be back after this.
This is Open Your Mind Radio on OYMradio.com and peoplesinternetradio.com.
And we're back. I hope you were shaking your pants to that one. We are the world. Well, we are the world. I was just having a quick chat with Bernadette and catching up on a few things. And she's staying over on the Friday, so that means that she's going to be listening to myself and Steve gabble on the Saturday morning at the Open Mind Conference, which is great stuff. So it'll be great to see her and great to catch up on a few things. That blanket that she talks about, I know it's expensive, but apparently in Germany they were using the blanket for newborn babies because it's based on Rife technology or Rife frequencies for healing. And the whole idea is that you lie in the blanket for a period of time during about 8 to 10 minutes, I think. And then you get out, and then you just wrap your body in it, and it sounds fantastic. I mean, 3 or 4 grand, who has that kind of money? But if you do, it might be a kind of a good investment to get involved in that. And if you're going down to the Open Mind Conference, obviously you'll be able to speak to Bernadette about that, if you want to say that. Now, there's something, as I say, Steve had to fly off. He had to go, and he has to go to the airport there. So it was just my little on myself at the end. But something that I just wanted to point out here, and it was in the evening echo.ie, and it said that the Cork Gardaí asked public to report people who don't work but have flashy cars. And it says Gardaí are asking the Cork public to report any people, don't know why Cork, who have flashy cars, who go on a lot on holidays but don't appear to work, to the Criminal Assets Bureau. 14 cab investigations are currently active in Cork, and the organisation is appealing to the public to come forward with information on additional cases. Detective Chief Superintendent Patrick Calvin said the organisation is looking to extend its work across the country, including Cork. At the moment, he said, half of all cab cases are in Dublin and in Cork. They typically handle drug dealing, burglary, theft, organised prostitution investigations. If you think you know someone who has a flashy car, who goes on a lot of holidays and doesn't appear to work, report them to CAB, said Detective Chief Superintendent Calvin. We will look into it and you will not have to give evidence in court. If you think there are people that we should be looking at, let us know. Yeah, the majority of the politicians in the Dáil, a lot of them don't seem to do any work, but they have flashy cars and go on loads of holidays. I think they should be looking at the politicians anyway. That would be a very good start. Now, I did say at the start, I did say at the end of the show last week that we would have a chap on called Vincent from Oregon, UK. Unfortunately, I got the date wrong. Sorry about that. It's actually, Vincent's going to be on next week. And Vincent is a friend of Harry's, and he does the organised pyramids, and he does all that kind of stuff. And they are fantastic devices that he builds. Brilliant. They really look good. And his website's called Oregon UK. I know he's on Facebook. Sorry, I say his Facebook page is called Oregon UK. I don't know whether he has a website. But if you're on Facebook, type in Oregon UK and check them out, because they look fantastic. And and apparently he uses, I think, the gold, there's a certain level of gold in it as well. But we'll find out more next week. Okay, we'll find out more next week. Now, the other thing as well, for people who are regular listeners to OYM, I had a talk with Thomas earlier on today, Thomas Williams from the Truth, Honour and Integrity show, and Thomas has kindly managed to organise Kim from the Kingdom of Mana to come on OYM, and we're looking at around 11th of March for the two of them to come on the show, because we have a lot of questions to ask Kim from the Kingdom of Mana, and Thomas is going to be on as well. And we're going to find out about what's going on, because some people haven't listened to the actual Kingdom of Mana show and are not familiar with, the whole declaration and what happened there. So we'll get Kim on and we'll talk to Kim, and so that's going to be a good show as well. Plus, we're still trying to get Jared Rand. We've emailed him. He's agreed to do a show, but I'm trying to tie him down to get a date off him. And it's still a bit tricky, so still trying to work on that. But anyway, we will get there and we'll do our best and see what we can do. So for myself, anyway, we're at the end of the night. Alan James, take it easy, have a good week, and if there's any news, let us know. We'll try and get through it. I am busy during the week these days. I have a lot of personal projects on, and so time is limited. But I do try and look at the emails that come in and read them, and have a quick look at the videos if I can, so we can, maybe talk about them on the following week's show. Well, that's the plan of attack anyway. But for myself anyway, take care, take it easy. Hope you enjoyed the show, and we'll see you next week. Bye bye.